Well, for me, it's specifically producers. I wish they would stop asking so many damn questions and just go out and make their mistakes and get their
But they can
beats
do both, right?
stolen. Well, yeah, they
So ask
but
hella questions and act.
no. So look, what's going down? It's the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast powered by BeatStars. BeatStars.world. We're live with our online music business mentorship program twice a week, Mondays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out musicentrepreneurclub.com or beatstars.world and tune in live. What's going on, Dame? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Feeling good today. I've had a pretty productive week so far. No drama, so that's always good. Outside of, I guess, Ice Cube running his mouth yesterday, or not running his mouth, but outside of Ice Cube fiasco on Twitter. It's been a pretty cool, productive week. So I'm good. I'm good. How are you, man?
Let's skip to the next question. So, I know you had a lot you wanted to talk about, but so did I.
I made a tweet the other day, and I promise you, it's not a dig. Like, it's basically was saying like the music industry and a pursuit of a music career is not for everybody, and it's not a dig, because I've had some success and I've been around for a minute. But there's a lot of things that are not for me. Like, as much as I wanted to play in the NBA when I was younger, like, I know that I'm confident that if I would have practiced every day 24/7, that I wouldn't have made it to the NBA. It's another caliber of play. I was a good player, and the NBA game is just totally different, right? Like, I'm confident that, I probably, well, maybe I could have been a doctor, but like, there's certain things that fit my skill set, just my natural abilities, my natural passions that are for me. And, I think music is so different from a lot of other careers, right? Like, there's no structure in music. You kind of have to create your own structure. You have to prepare yourself for a lot of people letting you down, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of people that say things that just don't come to fruition. You have to be super patient at times, well, most of the time. And there's just a lot of people that you're not going to be able to depend on. It's a very weird environment. You have to be able to be consistent day in and day out. You have to be able to be creative. You have to prepare for people like constantly like being negative about your work or about you or about how you look when you put yourself out there publicly. Like, it can really take a toll on you mentally if you're not prepared for all of the negative that comes with the pursuit of a career in the music industry. Probably gonna be people telling you suck. There's probably gonna be people that don't buy into what you think people should. You put your heart and your soul into your craft, and like, they may not show up to a show. Like, it's gonna be a long time before you probably see some success, and it's not an easy thing to cope with. Like, it's not an easy thing to deal with. So when I say not everybody's meant to be in the music industry or to have a career in music, because I take that, like, to be in the music industry, there's a lot of places there's a lot of roles in the music industry, right? So I'm thinking primarily as an art. When I say this, I'm talking primarily as an artist or a producer. It's a tough road. So it's not a dig to say like not everybody. Just like I say, not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. Like, it's similar in a lot of ways. I mean, you are an entrepreneur as an artist. So just want to get your perspective on that, pain, because I really am not trying to throw any type of shade anywhere. Just some people are more cut out for it than others.
Yeah, I mean, when I started making music, I had a lot of people around me, and out of those, maybe, I don't know, 30 people I started making music with, I can name two who are left. So and I think for the most part, it was just a mental roadblock because all of them had the talent. I think a lot of them just couldn't deal with the uncertainty and the level of hard work that no one is telling you to do. You have to tell yourself how to do that, and you have to figure out what that work looks like for yourself. And so that's what I mean when I say uncertainty. I don't just mean the uncertainty of not necessarily making it as a musician, but the uncertainty of figuring out what you have to do when there's no rule book, the uncertainty of creating a schedule when there's no boss to tell you your schedule. So absolutely. But these principles apply to anybody who's going into business for themselves. I think what sets the musician or the artist apart from a regular entrepreneur is that being a business owner, if you have, a brick and mortar business or you provide a service, it's a lot more tangible to people. Providing a service makes sense. Here's my service, I advertise it, people purchase it. Here's my business, I advertise it, people walk in and buy a product. With music, nobody has a nice little way of describing their business model. No one says, okay, I put out music, people buy it, life is good. There are all of these different nuances in the music business. And, probably one of the biggest is just making the music. And that's the tip of the iceberg. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. At the same time, I also think a lot of people, it's hard to say, right? Because is it that they're quitting because they're not meant for it? Or is it that they haven't figured out their place in it and they're just giving up on themselves prematurely? But if they were to just, try a little harder, they'd figure it out. I think it's probably a combination of both, because there are certainly some people who are just, some music isn't good. Some people's attitudes aren't good. Some people's skill sets just aren't there. But God, I've seen some of the most talented people give up and walk away.
Yeah, I think the reasons are probably all over the place, like you said. Sometimes it's a lack of knowledge. Sometimes it's ego. Sometimes it's work ethic. Like, I've literally met with artists and I was like, okay, what's your plan? Right. He's like, they'll be like, I've been doing this one particular thing and it was gaining a lot of traction. It was working. I was like, well, how many times did you produce that type of content? How consistent was it? I did it about 3 or 4 times. And then it's like, you're coming to me for help. You just told me that you were doing something 3 or 4 times and it was working. And you stopped? Like, why? Like, why would you stop? If you have a particular branded piece of content that you're putting out weekly and it was gaining traction and you decided to stop and try to figure out something else, it's like, why didn't you just keep doing what you were doing? Like, why weren't you able to, maintain that consistency? Were you trying to look for something else that was going to, like, go faster? Like, that probably wasn't going to happen. Like, you had something that worked. Like, so there's a million reasons why, and there's probably not, one thing that is the reason for everybody. But like I said, I've seen ego, I've seen lack of consistency, lack of work ethic, lack of knowledge, lack of patience, and sometimes, and then, like you said, just not being, like, the music just not being good. Like, just the product was the problem, right? But it frustrates me to no end when it's either work ethic or patience. Like, that is so frustrating to see, like, super talented people that could have a career in this, a very healthy and probably financially successful career in this, it's frustrating to no end, seeing those people like not be able to make it happen because it was ego or work ethic or lack of patience or lack of education. That's when I see that, man, I just shake my head, and I see it all the time, and I'm sure you have too. Like,
Yeah, what also frustrated me was all the talented people I was working with. Everything was all good between all of us until we started seeing a little bit of success. And I'm not saying that that's how it is across the board. I'm not making a generalization that when success comes, people's characters start to crack. But that was my experience. I was seeing the majority of the people around me respond to successes in really strange ways. There was a group I was in that was doing really well. I mean, they were getting 5,000 a show, and the lead of the group decided, years into their career, I'll say the gender, years into her career, that she wanted to do a complete 180 from all the music that had gotten her to that point. She wanted to switch it up. And it wasn't because of some artistic need. It wasn't because of some moral impulse. It was just because she thought making a different kind of music would be more successful. And so at that point in your career, to pivot for no real good reason and alienate your fans, that's a really bad idea. And it did hurt a little bit, but she made some other really poor decisions that completely halted that progress and ultimately destroyed the group. But I mean, probably the artist that I was working closely with, the closest with, we had a great opportunity, a big opportunity, and we had a radio show together. We were part of the Drake Sprite campaign. There were a bunch of really good things happening for us. And right at that moment, it seemed like he just decided he was going to be a drug addict. I'm not saying that's how it happened. From my perspective,
I'm sure, I don't think he just made the decision.
No, but it was like that corresponded to the increase, to the escalation of the drug habit. Where I'm just like, when things were bad and we weren't getting anywhere, it felt like we cared more. And now the positive things are happening, and we're seeing that our hard work is paying off, and it really looks possible. It really looks like everything we claim that we want out of life is actually happening for us. And I don't understand why that's the moment that people decide to exit the picture.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you really need to have like a solid foundation, and you really need to ground yourself. So I'm talking about like just as a person and health wise, like mentally, we've talked about this before. Like, I think you should be healthy, working out, meditating, with therapists. Like, you really need to be grounded, because the things you're going to be confronted with if you have success, or even if you don't have success, like, are not normal. Like, to put yourself out into the public and to have people shit on you or talk about you, like, you really have to be a grounded person to be able to absorb that. Even if you're getting a lot of praise, there's always going to be people that are unhappy with themselves that come out and attack you. You have to be grounded. And that's not, you got to have the right people around you, so that's just you as a person being able to step into this environment. But there's also like your foundation in terms of like what like you have to really know what the music industry is and how to set yourself up for success, how to set your business up for success. And you have to have the right team in place to be able to handle the things that you were talking about, to handle that success, or if you have success and then it plateaus for a little while, like, it's not panic mode. It's not like, hey, switch my whole thing up. Like, you need to be able to really analyze, have the people around you to be like, okay, we don't need to change genre, but we do need to make these changes here, right? You have to, just be very calculated and just have a very good understanding of what's happening. Because I think from what I've seen as artists, they do just kind of fly off the handle quick or make very irrational decisions. And this is not a normal career. And I always encourage, obviously I came from the corporate world, and a lot of people hate on anything corporate, but I think it laid a very good foundation for all the work that I do now, because it gives me some sense of organization, some sense of structure. There's a reason why, corporations do really well and they're really big and they make millions and billions of dollars. Like, that organization helps. And I think bringing some of that to, the music industry has really helped me be organized and structured in how I move. So I think that is as much as people push back on, being corporate or being, working for the man or whoever, like, I think working at a well-run company is very good experience for starting your own career as a musician. I think you're going to learn a lot. As much as you might hate that job, you're going to eventually appreciate why they had weekly meetings. You're going to appreciate why you had to do things a certain way, because the artists that are most successful have that same structure and have been able to replicate that and do things a certain way. I bet you, I have no idea what goes on within OVO, but I guarantee you that there's a lot of structure, there's well-identified roles, and, they're moving like a corporation.
Well, now is a good time, I guess, to transition over to my tweet, because it relates to what you just said in a lot of ways. And I recently tweeted that a plan without action is wasted energy. And some people said that the reverse was true, that action without a plan is a waste of energy as well. And I actually disagree with that, believe it or not. Let me ask you, what do you think? Do you think that working without a plan is just as wasteful as planning without work?
So I don't think it's wasteful to work without a plan. Like, sometimes the plan is just to do shit because you need that data. Like, you need to see before.
We agree. Look at that. Yes. Harmony on the MEC.
Before you can put together that long-term plan, you need to better understand what pulling certain levers does. So, I'm fine with a shotgun approach in the beginning, maybe a consistent shotgun approach to really understand like what happens when you pull these certain levers for you and your brand, and then coming back together and putting together an actual plan and be consistent over a longer period of time. So, so that's how you were thinking too, Payne?
Yeah, it's like it's the difference between saving recipes and never cooking and cooking without a recipe. If you're cooking without a recipe, you're still producing food. It might not always taste good, but you're learning in the process what not to do and what to do in the future. If you're just sitting there collecting recipes, you're not actually being productive. So I think action without a plan in the music business is honestly how all of us start. I don't think anyone starts making music and they have some amazing 10-tier plan with a timeline. I just think we're making music, and those of us who think we need a plan are paralyzing ourselves because we just never put anything out because we're waiting for the plan to be done. And then once we plan, we're obsessing over the details of the plan. And then we're obsessing over the timing of the plan, and we're waiting for the right time. I can't stand this. I work with so many artists who are just sitting on music, and I've worked with them, and it's so much energy invested into this music that we created together. And 3 years later, the music's still not out because they're waiting for the right time. 4 years later, 5 years later, the music's still not out. No one wants that music now. You don't even want that music out. Because it sounds old, and it's not. You're not excited about it anymore. So that paralysis is just so devastating to a creative person. And if you're throwing the music out there and it doesn't work out the way you want it to, you hit the nail on the head. You'll have some data and you'll make those mistakes. And guess what those mistakes do? They show you what you're lacking. They show you areas in which you need to tighten up. And that's what a plan is. That's where the plan comes from. In my experience, the plan comes from doing it for a while and then stepping back and saying, okay, what's working, what's not working? Oh, this isn't working. Let me figure out. Let me very deliberately research exactly, my Spotify plays are not, I'm not getting playlisted. Let me research how to do that. Let me research fan engagement. Oh, I don't have an email list. I've been doing this for a whole year without an email list. That was really stupid of me. Let me figure out how to do that. Let me figure out my merchandise because I didn't have merchandise. Let me analyze, what is working. It's just that so many people get caught up in the planning stage. They never go on to the experience stage. So they're prisoners of their own minds, and their minds are telling them, be scared. Wait, don't do it yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, being an entrepreneur requires, you to be nimble and to shift and to pivot. We've talked about that before, but even the biggest companies in the world, the way they started out, I'm sure it wasn't exactly how they planned it, how big they are now, right? Like when Facebook started at Harvard, I think it was Harvard, right? Like, I don't think everything that they're doing now, buying WhatsApp and getting into Instagram, that wasn't necessarily the plan. I don't think Jeff Bezos knew that he was going to be doing movie, or maybe he did. I have no idea, but they started. And, I think a lot, especially tech companies, right? A lot of them start with no path to revenue generation. They're just like, hey, let's just try to get as many users on the platform as possible, and we'll figure out how to monetize it later. Right?
Yeah, Netflix started out as a DVD rental service.
Right. So, I think artists need to look at it similarly. Put yourself out, get as good as you can at what you're doing and put it out. Ja the same way. So when Big Ja started making sketches, he wasn't on Facebook yet. He was just making them and putting them out on Instagram. And then eventually he started putting them on Facebook. But he would just upload them to Facebook and then shut the computer. He wouldn't look at the comments. He wouldn't look at the likes. He wouldn't look at anything. He wouldn't adjust the captions or the titles. He wouldn't, the metadata, whatever, no tags, even on YouTube. He literally just uploaded the video, put a title, and shut the computer. And obviously that's not the ideal way to, put your content out. You want to maximize the exposure of all your sketches. But now, going back and, now that we do have everything more fine tuned and looking at the growth and the progression, but also that older content, we can now repurpose. So if he waited and was just I'm not ready, the sketches aren't ready, we probably would have only had content to repurpose from maybe the beginning of 2019 or maybe end of 2018. But because he just threw stuff out there, now we have stuff that we can repurpose on TikTok, because TikTok didn't exist, at the time, I don't think, when he started. We have stuff to repurpose for Instagram. We have never ending pieces of content because he just put stuff out, right? And it wasn't in the best way possible. It wasn't shot the best way. The audio wasn't the best, but it was funny. And it's fun for his fans that have caught on more recently to see that older stuff. And they never would have saw that if he was hesitant. He probably would never have gotten to this point if, he was afraid to put out content in the beginning. So you have to just, put stuff out there, learn from it, get better. Like you were saying, okay, I didn't have an email address. I didn't have an email list for this first year. Okay, slap yourself on the hand, but make sure you have it for the years going forward so you can start collecting data, doing your merch, all that. So yeah, man, I think we're on the same page on this one.
What kills me too? I wish, well, for me, it's specifically producers. I wish they would stop asking so many damn questions and just go out and make their mistakes and, get their beats stolen. Right? Well, yeah, but
ask questions and act.
No, so look, learning, investigating, being inquisitive, being skeptical, those are all good things. Those are things I think we both encourage. But what's actually better is experiencing everything for yourself and then figuring out the next steps. Because when you go out and try things out, you're going to have questions because they're not always going to go perfectly. And even if they do go well, you're going to have questions as to how to make them better. But having a question about something that doesn't exist, having a question about an experience you haven't had yet, means that question's not even going to be a complete question. And the answer that you get isn't going to make sense. So I have people asking me questions all the time, producers that say, hey, I've never put a beat out. What do you think my price point should be? Why are you asking me this question right now? I have no idea. No, you have no feedback from people. I don't even know if your beats are good. Don't ask me that question. Put the beats out and figure it out, because that's something that you need to. I can't tell you that. And like someone just asked me this long convoluted question about only wanting to work an hour a day or something like that, and how can they be successful with only working an hour a day or something. Like, you're asking me a question that's completely based on your lack of experience, number one, and then number two, you're asking a question based on your own desires not to work that hard. So I'm not answering these questions.
Somebody asked you how they could be successful, but just working 1 hour a day.
It was just this is my point. It was a question that didn't make any sense. And it didn't make any sense because the person hadn't experienced any of this stuff for himself. So I'm not
getting. Just read like what's that book? That popular book, like the 4-Hour Work Week or something like that. Like that doesn't apply. There is a popular book, and there's a lot of stuff that makes sense in that book, but that book does not apply to the music industry. There's no 4-Hour Work Week in the music industry that I've ever seen anybody replicate, or I've never seen it.
Well, I think, there's just so much fear associated with the music business. And for me, I think the biggest and wrongest question that producers ask me all the time is how to protect their beats. You just can't. You can't. I mean, everyone gets their beats stolen. Everybody. Producers at every level are getting their beats stolen, getting their ideas taken. And so then I'll see some producers say, well, if that's the case, I don't want to be in this business. Okay, cool. Then don't. But I think that's a really stupid reason to live the rest of your life with regrets. Now, again, this is one of those things that comes and creeps into your consciousness and paralyzes you because of your lack of experience. Producers are so scared of having their beats stolen. They're so afraid of that thing happening to them, but they've never experienced it. When it happens to them, it's not a big deal. You move on.
And it's definitely not just producers. Like I've seen artists that were scared to bring on a lawyer, that were scared to bring on a business manager. I'm like, bro, like it's at a certain point, you get to a certain point, like you have to bring on a business manager or you're really going to hurt yourself. You're going to be, struggling. You're going to owe back taxes. You're going to lose a lot of money if you don't find somebody to, play this role in your business. So now I know because even in a few minutes ago, like you said, artists should be skeptical. Like we have to clarify that because like it has to be a healthy skepticism. It's skepticism. Like you can be healthily skeptical and ask questions and continue to find the right answer, or you can be negatively skeptical and which leads to the paralysis that you're talking about, right? Because if you're skeptical of everybody and you think that everybody's going to take your money and everybody's going to do you shady, you're probably just going to keep doing things your way and you're going to have limited success. So healthy skepticism, where you're asking questions and getting answers and still moving, as opposed to not moving and not adding to your team and not learning.
Oh man, the manager thing. My close friend is a manager, and he was managing this artist and getting him a lot. And this is on him. He was doing it without a contract because he just wanted to see this guy win. And then it was time to have that conversation. And he had the conversation and said, look, I've done all this for you. You know, I want you to sign this contract. And the guy said, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm too skeptical. I don't want to do this. I'm not locking myself in. And that was it. No more tours for him. That was the last tour he was on because he just wasn't doing it himself. The manager was doing it. So yeah, that goes to what you're saying. You know, if there had been healthy communication throughout and everyone understood their roles and everyone understood their goals and everyone understood where everybody fit in, you know, to the long-term plan, maybe the outcome would have been differently or would have been different. I don't know. But yeah, it's just, there are so many different factors, and I think they all kind of have the same common denominator, which is fear.
Yeah. And you really have to learn and understand this business. And that's why we have the MEC. You have to understand like the roles. Like I literally just had this conversation with Ja. We talked about, and I don't have a contract, but our relationship is different, which I'm sure has been said many times before. Like I understand the consequences of not having a contract, you know, going forward. So I'm not encouraging other up and coming managers not to have a contract. You should have a contract. But, you know, we had a recent discussion on a new revenue stream that I pretty much helped create. And, you know, you have to really understand a manager's role, because there's going to be, there are some revenue streams where I can say, look, I did this and this happened. I contributed to this, and like I literally was responsible for that additional $10,000. So that is why I'm owed a percentage of that. But then there's also going to be things that I can't like directly tie a specific dollar amount. You just have to understand the role that I've played in your career. Like not every revenue, because a lot of artists want to do that, right? They want to say, okay, you know, well, what did you do? Like what specifically did you do? And I'll give you a percentage of that. Well, managers do a lot of shit that there's no revenue tied to, right? Like I interviewed a lot of business managers to make sure that I find the right one for Ja, that is gonna, you know, that is really gonna set him up for long-term financial success. All of that time, like I'm not getting paid like directly for that, right? Like that's not revenue generating. That's me making sure you build a solid team and you have a solid foundation for future success. Yes, I'm going to benefit from that in the future, but that time spent like literally interviewing probably 10 different business managers and back and forth, like I don't necessarily get paid for that. So and that's just one example. So there's going to be a lot of that managers don't necessarily get paid for. And that's why they get a percentage on, you know, all of the revenue that comes in, you know, whereas something like Facebook, I could say, look, you know, because basically what we started doing is repurposing old content, making his Facebook page more active, and he's generated a lot more revenue than he's typically done. And that was primarily driven by me. Obviously his content, but you know, the strategy by me. And I can point to these videos, because I know you go in the back of Facebook and you can be like, look, well, this video made this much and this post made that much, like, and not everything's going to be that way. So I know I just spoke for probably way too long, but you really need to understand this business so that you can be less skeptical of the people that are adding value to your career, and you don't fuck up and like remove somebody that you just thought was there and that person actually played a crucial role.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation about who did I have this conversation with? We were talking about I guess it was with my team of producers of Vintage Vandals. We were talking about how we just split everything evenly, and how oftentimes you'll get in these situations where the second the conversation about sharing comes up, or revenue sharing or commission or splitting or whatever, people start getting real hostile and kind of start fighting and getting overstating their contributions. And it's stupid, especially when you're talking about nothing, you know, especially when it's all theoretical. Like, here's a song that hasn't come out. Can we split it 50-50? Well, you know, I don't want to split it 50-50 because technically I spent a little more time doing this part, or I cool. Those are the types of people that
I felt the drums are why fans really resonate with this song, and I did the drums, so I should get a higher percentage of the publishing.
Dame always does the drums. Dame always deserves a higher percentage of the publishing. Okay, so on that note, we are live every single Monday and Thursday, and it's totally interactive and it's completely free. We have a lot of amazing guests on. That's all powered by BeatStars. Check that out. What's the number to text so people can know when the next time we go live is?
So text MEC to 844-206-7800, and we'll send a text right before we go live so that you can tap into these sessions. We got some really dope ones coming up. We got, I'll speak for mine. We have the founder of Fake Shore Drive, Andrew, coming on soon.
Nice.
Yeah, we got Dan Runcie, the founder of Trapital. His business has grown since the first time we've had him on. So, a lot more people are familiar with his work. Jason Jeter is going to come on at some point, one of the co-founders of Grand Hustle. We got some dope sessions coming up. So, these are free. You should definitely tap in with us. Text MEC to 844-206-7800.
Yeah, and I have some really amazing ones coming as well. I have Monique Winning, who's a dope producer. She's getting a ton of placements lately. I have Mike Trampy, who's going to talk about YouTube beat marketing. I have Adam Friedman coming on, who's basically the most aggressive lawyer on social media on behalf of producers. I have a lot of people coming on. A lot of people coming on. And so you don't want to miss them. And you don't have to, because they're free and they're pre-recorded. So musicentrepreneurclub.com, beatstars.world.
And Payne, next week, what I want to talk about, I saw a tweet this morning from an artist that said, producers, y'all stop giving the same beats to cats. That shit's a no-no. So I want to talk about that next week, about how you handle that.
Who said that? Who was the rapper that said that?
At really boss man. I don't think he's that big of an artist, but I know that can cause a lot of complications when you're sending, but I definitely understand a producer's perspective. I understand an artist's perspective too. So let's have that discussion next week, sending the same beats out to different artists and, any drama that, because I'm sure you've run into that in the past, unless you don't send the same beat out. But sure. Let's talk about that next week.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's do it. All right. Once again, appreciate you tuning in. Peace.